Have you ever stared at your phone, waiting for it to ring? Not because you had an important appointment, not because you were expecting a delivery, but because you were hoping to hear a familiar voice. The voice of a son, a daughter, a grandchild, someone you once held in your arms, someone you sacrificed for, someone who used to need you every single day. And yet now, days pass, sometimes weeks, sometimes even longer, and the silence begins asking painful questions. Did I do something wrong? Have they forgotten about me? Do I matter less now than I used to? If you're over 70, you're not alone in feeling this way. In fact, one of the deepest forms of loneliness many seniors experience isn't living alone. It's feeling emotionally distant from the people they love most. And today, we're going to talk about a subject that hurts, but needs to be discussed. Why do so many adult children stop calling their parents? The answer is more complicated and more heartbreaking than most people realize. Because in many cases, it isn't a lack of love, it's something else entirely. And understanding that truth may change how you see your family, your relationships, and yourself. Let's begin. The first heartbreaking truth is this: life slowly pulls people in different directions. When children are young, parents are the center of their world. Every problem comes to mom. Every question goes to dad. Every victory is shared. Every fear is comforted. But adulthood changes the landscape. Careers begin, marriages happen, children arrive, bills pile up, responsibilities multiply. And without intending to, many adult children begin living from deadline to deadline. Days blur together, weeks disappear, months fly by. What feels like neglect to a parent often feels like survival to an overwhelmed adult child. That's not an excuse, but it is a reality. Many sons and daughters genuinely love their parents, yet they underestimate how much their silence hurts. They assume, Mum knows I love her. Dad understands I'm busy. I'll call next weekend. Then next weekend becomes next month, and the distance quietly grows. The second truth is even more painful. Sometimes adult children avoid calling because they feel guilty. This may sound strange at first, but think about it. Many adult children know they should call more often. They know their parents miss them. They know time is precious. And because they know these things, every missed call creates a little guilt. That guilt becomes uncomfortable. So instead of calling, they delay. And the longer they delay, the more uncomfortable the situation feels. Weeks become months. Then a simple phone call suddenly feels emotionally heavy. Not because love disappeared, but because guilt got in the way. Ironically, the very people who want to reconnect sometimes struggle to make the first move. The third truth is one many parents rarely consider. Communication styles change between generations. Many seniors grew up during a time when phone calls were normal. Conversations mattered, checking in mattered, hearing someone's voice mattered. Today's world operates differently. Text messages, social media, quick updates, short interactions. Many younger adults feel connected even when they haven't spoken for weeks. But for many parents, connection means conversation, a real conversation, one where you hear laughter, emotion, concern, love. This creates a painful misunderstanding. The child thinks we're staying in touch. The parent feels we barely speak anymore. Neither side is necessarily wrong, but both experience the relationship differently. The fourth truth is perhaps the hardest to hear. Sometimes unresolved wounds create distance. Not every family relationship is simple. Not every childhood was perfect. Not every parent-child bond is free from pain. Some adult children carry old hurts, some parents carry regrets, and years can pass without those feelings being fully addressed. In these situations, silence often becomes a form of protection. People avoid difficult conversations because they fear conflict, they fear rejection, they fear reopening old wounds. This doesn't mean reconciliation is impossible. Far from it. But it does mean that sometimes the missing phone call is about unresolved emotions, not a lack of love. The fifth truth is one that surprises many seniors. Adult children
Let's
often
take
assume
a
their parents are
little
stronger than they
break
really are.
from that
Think about
for
it. For
now.
most of their lives, parents were the caregivers, the problem solvers, the protectors, the dependable ones. Children become so accustomed to seeing their parents as strong that they struggle to recognize their vulnerability later in life. Even at 50 years old, many sons and daughters still see mom and dad through the lens of childhood. As a result, they underestimate loneliness. They underestimate aging. They underestimate how meaningful a simple phone call can be. They don't realize that 5 minutes of conversation might brighten an entire week. And because they don't realize it, they fail to act. Not out of cruelty, out of misunderstanding. Now, let's talk about something important. If you're a parent watching this, please hear these words carefully. Your worth is not measured by how often your phone rings. Your value is not determined by how many calls you receive. And your importance does not disappear because someone forgot to check in. This is critical to understand because loneliness has a way of lying to us. It whispers things like, "You've been forgotten. You no longer matter. Your best years are behind you." But those things are not true. You are still the person who sacrificed sleep for your children. You are still the person who worked hard, worried endlessly, and loved deeply. You are still the person whose life shaped future generations. A missed phone call cannot erase a lifetime of love. And here's another truth many seniors need to hear. Sometimes waiting is the wrong strategy. Many parents sit silently, hoping their children will reach out first. But relationships often need initiative from both sides. A phone call works both ways. A text message works both ways. A simple, "thinking about you today. How are the kids? I'd love to hear your voice," can reopen doors that have quietly drifted shut. Never underestimate the power of taking the first step. Pride has ended more relationships than distance ever could. Now, let's be honest, some adult children truly are neglectful. Some take their parents for granted. Some become so consumed by their own lives that they fail to recognize what they're losing. And that is heartbreaking, because one day, every unanswered call becomes a memory that can never be changed. One day, every postponed conversation becomes a missed opportunity. Time is undefeated, and every family eventually learns that lesson. The tragedy is that many learn it too late. That's why today's message isn't only for parents, it's also for sons and daughters. Call your parents, not because you have to, because you can. One day there will come a time when you wish you could hear their voice one more time, one more story, one more laugh, one more ordinary conversation. And by then, the opportunity may be gone. For those of you over 70 watching today, remember this. You deserve connection. You deserve love. You deserve to be heard. But don't allow your happiness to depend entirely on someone else's phone call. Continue building a life that includes friendship, purpose, community, and joy. Because the strongest protection against loneliness isn't waiting for life to come to